Hey everybody, today we're going to make a 12-layer chocolate cake. It's birthday time again, so we're going to give this one a try. This is a very traditional southern chocolate cake. I remember my aunt making this many times for Mother's Day, and every time it having a different amount of layers, but the traditional way is 12 layers, so that's what we're shooting for today. So I have 3/6 of softened butter in my mixing bowl here. I have already creamed that up. I just added 3 cups of sugar, and I'm gonna mix these together until they're nice and light and fluffy. Alright, now I have to add in 6 whole eggs. I'm gonna do 2 at a time. That didn't work. I'll have to get that other piece here in a second. This egg just wanted to crumble instead of break. Let's see if I can get that piece of shell out. Got it. Alright. Give that a mix. We'll do 2 more eggs. The ones in these cartons are harder to get out of the carton, and they're also not breaking well. That's all right. We'll make do. That's 4. Final 2. Okay. Let that go. Wash my hands real quick. Now I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and I take my spatula and get these bits that are not mixed in well. Go down to the bottom, make sure we get it all before we start adding in our dry ingredients. If you hear a bell in the background, it is a kitten in my kitchen because it's so hot outside. She can't be outside right now, so she is hanging out in a playpen with one of those little ball towers. Alright, so that. I'm going to give that another mix. Alright, now I'm going to add in my cake flour. I need 4.5 cups of cake flour, and then I'm going to also need, let's see, then I'm also going to need 2 cups of whole milk. So, you go ahead and measure up here. I don't have 2 cups of whole milk, so I'm using 2% milk and then adding 1/2 cup of heavy whipping cream. Okay, and that should give me the fat I'm missing from the 2% milk. Ooh, sorry. Trying to keep all the things together that I haven't used yet so I don't miss anything. Alright, so first thing I need to do is get a cup of cake flour. Alright. We're going to let that go for a second. Okay, and then I'm going to add a little of this milk. Add in my next cup of cake flour. My oven has preheated. A little more milk. Alright, third cup of flour. Some more milk. Ooh, making a mess. It's alright. Fourth cup of flour. If you have a little guard for your mixer, you'll probably make significantly less mess than I am. I have one. I just can't be bothered to grab it. Alright, that's that fourth cup going in. Give it a little bit of milk. All the milk. Let's see if we can get a half a cup of flour out of this. I think we probably will. Alright, perfect. Now, last thing we want to do is add in our baking powder. And then we're also going to add a 3/4 teaspoon of salt to this mix. There's a half teaspoon, plus another half. Then we need how much? 2 tablespoons of baking soda. 1. And 2. Alright, now I'm going to stop this for a second and scrape everything, make sure everything is incorporated properly. Down to the bottom. Make sure there's no big chunks of butter or anything floating around. Now, I'm gonna let this go again. Okay, that's looking good to me. So now we need to get it in our pans. Now, I know this looks like a whole lot of batter, and that's because it is. It's gonna make 12 layers. So now, in my oven, I'm only gonna bake 4 at a time. So I'm going to divide this out between them. And I only have 4 cake pans, so I'm doing it 3 times. Alright, one last mix to make sure I'm not missing anything. Alright, that looks good. So let me clean up just a tiny bit here because I have a mess going on. Make a little room to make sure I do this correctly. Alright, so this recipe is kind of confusing the way it's written because it's actually written for 18 layers, even though in some places it says 12 and some places it says 18. I'm doing 12 layers because that's the traditional way. That's what I'm used to, and that works better if you're using 4 cake pans. So I only have to do this 3 times. So my oven is preheated to 425, so it's a much hotter oven than usual for cake. I'm going to take my baking spray and spray the bottom of these 4 pans. Okay, so got my 4 pans. Now I need to turn on my scale. I want it to get to 0. Come on. I want it in ounces because I need 7 ounces per cake pan. All right. That's going to take forever. Oh, that's a little over 7. All right, that's our 7 for that one. We'll move it to the side so it can be leveling itself. Then I'm gonna tear this again, make sure it's at 0, put my pan on, 0 it again, and now I want 7 ounces again. Alright, so that is all of those. Now, next my instructions say that I need to bake these for 5 minutes. So we're gonna make sure everybody's nice and level. Looks like they are except for this one. Nice and level, and I'm gonna put them in my oven for 5 minutes. It doesn't say anything about refrigerating this, so I'm gonna do what they say. Alright, so the first 4 are out of the oven. I have moved them onto a wire rack so that they can cool. And now I have cleaned all my pans. I'm going to spray them all real quick with some baking spray. None of the first cakes stuck, so that's great. Didn't have any trouble there. The recipe does say that you can put a ring of parchment in the bottom as well as spray it, but so far I haven't needed that, and hopefully I don't. Alright. So, back to doing our, oops, we're in grams. That could have been a big mistake. Back to our 7 ounces. I am going to make sure I give this a good stir. Alright. Oh, we got a little carried away there. Okay, that one off to the side. The next one. Alright. And these are 9-inch cake pans. And since I'm doing 12 layers instead of 18, I did have to increase my baking time. So it ended up being right at 7 minutes. And I didn't shift them around in my oven. I didn't find that I needed to. They were fine on the racks the whole time. It's such a short cooking time that it didn't seem to matter. Make sure these are nice and level. And I'm going to get them in the oven for 7 minutes. Yeah. Meh. Okay, these last ones are out of the oven. So I have one of these cake, I think it's called a cake lifter or cake mover. And what I'm going to do is put this on top and then flip it over and then take this off. So you could flip it over right onto the cooling rack, and the reason I'm not is because the bottom of this is a little bit stronger than the top. So by putting it like this and then taking and flipping it over, I'm putting that tougher side onto the cooling rack so that hopefully it doesn't break up real bad. So I'll show you again. Put this on there like so, flip it over, take this guy out. Oh, it's hard to do with gloves on. Yeah, come on. There we go. And you'll see these cakes aren't sticking. Except that one did a little bit because I said something about it. Then we'll bring this over, and if you don't have anything on your cake pan yet, you can actually sandwich it like so. And then you can flip it. Ta-da! And then I've got one more to do. That one looks like it. Oh, it folded up. That's okay. We'll fix it. Alright, last one. And I ended up with 11, not 12, because I honestly don't know why. So we have an 11 layer cake. Let's do 12. Keep wanting to take my hand out of the oven mitt because it'll work better, but it's too hot. So these are straight out of the oven. These haven't had a chance to cool. Well, you see that one stuck a little bit too. Wonder why this last batch stuck. I'm gonna slide this guy over. Well, we'll just do like this. Last one. Flipping over like so. And that's all of them. And then if you come over here onto my drying rack, you can see them all cooling over here. All right, time to work on the icing. So, what we're gonna do is we need to add 12 ounces of evaporated milk. And that's how I was taught to open evaporated milk. So take this little can opener and poke holes. So if you try to take the whole top off, you may make a huge mess. So that's 12 ounces there. Then I need half a cup of unsweetened cocoa powder. Okay. You'll notice this is in a saucepan because I'm going to cook this on the stove. Now I need 1.5 cups of sugar. I need 1.5 tablespoons of light corn syrup. And this is going to give you the pliability and the shine on this icing. You can leave it out, but you're going to get a icing that is more likely to crack and be firmer. Okay, then I'm going to add just a little pinch of salt. And I'm going to get this on my stove. On medium heat. And I'm going to put the candy thermometer in here, and I'm looking for the softball stage, or around 235 degrees. It'll probably take about 15 minutes. Alright, so my icing has come up to temperature. I just added 1 stick of butter and a teaspoon of vanilla. And now I'm just letting that melt in. I've turned the heat off, but it's still on the hot burner. So I need to completely melt and incorporate that butter. And I have to keep this icing hot. So it's going to go onto my cake layers while it's still hot. Alright, so here we are at assembly time. So I've kept my icing nice and hot. And I'm going to take just a little bit and pour it right on top. Just enough to coat the layer, but not to drip off, as it's running to drip off on its own. Get spatula and see how that's doing. Alright. Go all the way to the edges, because this is going to be between your layers. This is going to make your layered look when you cut your cake. All the way out to the edges. Looks like I'm going to need a little bit more. Okay. It's okay if it does run over the edge a little bit. You just don't want to make too much of a mess on your cake plate like I'm making. But that's okay. Alright. Fill in all those spots, get all the way to the edge. I'm just gonna swipe that back up. And yes, I am using a Valentine's Day spatula. That's what we have today. Alright, so next layer, I'm going to put them on little pieces of parchment so that I could keep them from sticking together. So I could stack them for overnight. Now, every layer is incredibly important to get you a nice level cake. So there's level 2, and I'm going to do the same thing. Pour my icing around. I might have been a little, no, come back. There we go. I live in a very old house, so more than likely my counter is unlevel and it's making it run towards that side there. Sorry about the noise in the background. It's another hot day, so the kitten's inside. All right. Maybe a tiny bit more. And you're gonna make a mess, just go with it. You can always clean up after the fact. All right. That looks pretty good for that layer. Maybe a tiny bit more on this edge over here. All right. Do your next layer. All right, like so. And now I'm just going to repeat the process over and over and over again. All right, all the layers are now stacked. The last thing is just to add the icing to the very top. It looks like a bunch of pancakes at this point. All right, so let me put you back up here so that you can see what's going on. All right. Now, let's get this last little bit of icing. And we're going to pour this right over the top. Try and make it as even as possible, but we will see what happens. Ooh, that's wanting to go. All right. Now I just want to make sure this whole top is covered well. And then however it falls over the edges, it's perfectly fine. I am going to take my spatula and kind of distribute the really thick spots that fell. Sometimes people make this cake and actually cover all of the sides. I didn't use as much icing because we're not big icing people. So I got a little bit crooked with my layers as I went up, so I'm trying to flatten that out a little bit. Let's see if that helped. Yeah, it's better. Okay, so I'm gonna run my spatula around here and get these extra drips like so. Put them on any spots up top that look a little thin. Around again. All right. Now that will continue to settle because that icing is still warm. So this isn't at the boiling hot stage anymore, it's just warm. Now I'm going to take a wet paper towel and go around the edges of this bottom so that my cake plate looks nicer. And then I'll show you the final product. And this is certainly a messy experience, so if you do not like a messy kitchen, this is probably not the cake to make. All right, I think we're gonna call that done. And yeah, I think that looks good. So let me bring you down here so you can see. And I'll clean up that cake plate a little bit more and clean up my counter here. All right. So, there's our final product. It looks great. Now I'm going to let this sit in the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes. Again, icing under the cake plate. I'm going to let this sit in the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes or overnight, a whole day. It only gets better as it sits. But I hope you'll give this a try. And if you've made something like this before, I would love any tips or tricks on how to do this better or more efficiently. But I hope you enjoy.